power sector in Nigeria is one sector that is a very sensitive one because it carries a whole lot of power, just like the name, and a whole lot of developmental issues are tied to that sector. And we'll be looking at what has been the journey of the power sector in Nigeria. What can we do to make this better? You are welcome to the Patriot podcast. My name is Dell. We have a guest today that will be sharing with us a little into what the journey has been for the power sector in this country and what can be done. We have Dr. Sanusi Mohammed Ohiare. He is the former ED Rural Electrification Fund. Glad to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So let me start this way. Yes, growing up, there's always something that every community, once the power is restored, you hear children shout up NEPA. It means that there was something that wasn't there. And then if it's restored, there's always this excitement. It means that the power sector in Nigeria has always had a challenge, if you agree with me. What has been the problem?
Wow, that's a very generic question. You want me to talk about the long history of challenges we've had within the power sector. So let me take it way. I don't know how far back you want me to go, but maybe I should just take it from the beginning.
Okay.
Electricity was first produced in Nigeria in, I think, 1896 or thereabout in Ijora, Lagos. And since its production, I think then it's either we even found electricity first before England, or it was around the same time.
Yeah.
And you can see how far England has gone in terms of its reach, in terms of electricity access, 100% access, and giving their population compared to ours and all. Now, since its creation, it has moved from, in terms of its structure and the reform and how we have tried to provide access from that electricity to all households in Nigeria. It has taken various shapes and forms. Before 1960, I think we had some one or two hydro dams, that we relied on. And after that, NEPA was created in the 70s, and had all of the powers in terms of generation of electricity, transmission of electricity, to distribution of electricity, to rural electrification. In the true sense of it, it was if you like, monopoly. It was in charge of all aspects of the value chain. So we did that for a few decades, until it, was transformed into what we call power holding company. Just before privatization, and ultimately privatization in 2013, into where the sector was now subdivided. We had generation still in private hands, we have transmission still in the hands of government, and distribution, of course, divided into about 11 distribution companies. So this has been the journey so far. But the challenge that has led Nigeria to move from one form to the other in terms of the structure has just been that how can everybody have access to electricity? It has been an access challenge. Every government that has come to serve the country has always grappled with this problem of how do we provide electricity to every household at an affordable rate, and to be available 24/7. This has always been the problem.
Yeah.
But a lot of things have prevented this from happening. In those days when it was just Lagos and some areas that had access to electricity, the problem was huge because the country, in terms of the terrain, how do we now transmit this power from Lagos all the way to Maiduguri, for instance? So that is still what we are grappling with. Transmission, we've done quite a lot, but it's still a problem. And then later on, we got, hydro, like I said, Kanji is there, and a couple of others. But how do we also move it to other parts that don't have access? Later on, we relied more on gas. And a lot of these gas centers are in the south.
Yeah.
and Lagos area. So we have a lot of generation now in terms of comparing it to what we're transmitting and distributing, but we still have a lot of work to do in the transmission and distribution area. But the modern problem that we have, while all of this are still going on in terms of producing more power, to take care of all of our needs and all of our households, and transmitting it and distributing it accordingly, we now have modern problem of under the a reformed era, because we are now in a reformed era where we have a regulator, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. We now have challenges of, for instance, they call it ATC and C, that's the average technical and commercial and collection losses. So what this means is that when you generate this power, you generate, say, for instance, 100% of power. By the time you transmit it, due to some leakages within, technical leakages in terms of, just the value of the power from one point to the other. Sometimes it's too far that when it gets to the other point, it has already dropped. And then maybe you're only getting 60 or so percent of the power.
Okay.
And then we also have collection loss, whereby at the end of the day, after you transmit 100% power to the other side, so the value chain starts from this side where you generate the power, you transmit it, and then you distribute it. But in terms of the collection, that's collection of revenue. You've sold the power now, it has gotten to the household. It starts from this side where the money comes from the consumer, it goes to the distribution company, it goes to the transmission company, and then the generation company and gas producers and all of that. So by the time the money is going back, so you supplied, say, 100%, sorry. Now, the money you're collecting is now around 50-60%. So the aggregate of the transmission and collection losses is around 40-something%.
So if the government would want to get good value for what it has already been transmitted now to the consumer,
not just government, as you know, the
private sector, that is involved
exactly
in it now.
So these guys are spending money,
Yes.
gas, especially
So if they need to get back the value of what they're giving out, it means that there will be price hike in
don't call it price hike,
Okay.
So it's a tariff, and you're producing this water,
Yes.
this bottle of water, for instance.
Yes.
You know the cost. You know what goes into producing it, from getting the bottle and purifying the water and putting it in. So you know that you spent, say, 10 naira, for instance.
Yes.
Now, if you're selling it, you're not expected to sell it 10 naira
10
or
naira.
below.
Yes.
You're expected to have a bit of markup,
Yeah.
say maybe 1 or 2 naira on top, and then sell it 12 naira.
Yes.
But what has been happening in the power sector is that what you generate and eventually sell, you don't even get up to the cost of what you used to produce that
So
power.
it means that apart from the technical issues which you mentioned, even as consumers,
Yes.
we also have issues.
Yes, there are issues
Somehow,
issues of energy theft. People are not metered properly, so they are stealing power. Those that are metered are even bypassing meters. The distribution companies too are not helping matters, because they are comfortable where they can just do estimated billing in some areas. It's easier for them.
Yeah.
But even at the end of the day, the main people that government worries about are the gas suppliers and the generators,
Okay.
because these guys are the ones that actually generate the power. But then they are the people that are more vulnerable, because the distribution companies, what they used to do before was just collect the money and then keep the part that is meant for them, and government has to now worry about paying the remaining value chain.
Yeah.
So what government has been doing over the last few years, just like similar to what's happening within the petroleum sector, was to pay subsidies. So basically pay for what's left. So if, for instance, you produce power, say 10 megawatts of power, for instance, and then you only get payment for 6 megawatts. The remaining 4 megawatts, government has to pay. Otherwise, the generation companies, the gas suppliers, will shut their tap. And if they shut their tap, you cannot generate power.
Looks like some of these information are not open to the public. So sometimes when you...
No, the information are there. These are problems that have existed since privatization.
But when you hear the general public talk about they're increasing the tariff, there's no you hardly hear people say things like, okay, well, this is what the government has done to
Mm.
make life easy for us, and maybe.
No, but the truth is, as human beings, would always want the easy way out.
Mhm.
Would not want. We always want somebody to bear the brunt. So government has been bearing the brunt for a long time.
Mm.
But I think reality is setting in. That's the truth, because the money that is meant to be available for other sectors and other infrastructure development and even welfare
Yeah.
isn't there anymore. There is no free money coming in from anywhere. So I think it's just a matter of reality setting in and government realizing that, well, we have managed our people, we've managed the sector, the power sector, and also the petroleum sector this way for a long time.
Yes.
We can't continue to carry the burden. So it's the same thing that is happening within the power sector, and
So.
the reason why these assets were sold to private developers was because the government envisaged that they would be able to raise money outside government, from banks, from their own equity and all of that, bring it into strengthening the infrastructure
Yes.
that we have on ground in terms of distribution, and then just basically invest in the sector, right? But they are unable to even raise money.
Now let's look at when you mentioned the issue of management of the power sector. Are we even considering other options to dealing with the power failures and all of that, and the other sectors? Now we have the issue of solar, which is
No,
now
no, these are
coming from.
alternative
Yes,
power.
alternatives.
Yeah, I mean,
So.
for every country, to be honest, nobody just relies on one source. I don't know of any country, except if you are disadvantaged. Except, for instance, we have countries like South Korea. They don't have any energy source other than, say, maybe renewables and solar, and even that they are not that prolific in it, so they have to import everything,
So what are the
right?
options that
But for
Nigeria
Nigeria,
has?
a country as blessed and diverse as Nigeria, where we don't only have conventional energy resources like oil, gas, especially gas,
Yeah.
which is we have in abundance and which is used to generate power. We have renewables, in abundance. We have solar shining in almost every part of the country for at least 6 to 7 hours a day,
Yeah.
which is very, very good for solar technology to be deployed, and which the country has embraced. We have wind in some parts of the country. We have a wind farm in Katsina. I think it's about 30 megawatts. We have the south offshore wind is very, very good for wind power as well.
Are we
And
using
some
that?
parts of
Are we making the
I'm
most
not
of
sure we've
that?
done anything in south in
Okay.
terms of wind. I'm not sure. It's possible we have some small scale ones, but I wasn't part of anyone that I'm aware of. But in Plateau, I think we tried to do something in Plateau because it's because of the demography. It's on a plateau, so
Yes.
it also makes sense to do some wind there. But the one I'm aware of is the one in Katsina. We have a wind farm. I think it's about 30 megawatts. When you go there, you'll see the plants. You see them there. And then we have
Yes. That's what
biogas,
yeah.
power. We have all of this renewable. We have hydro. We have so. It only makes sense for you as a country to take in all of these resources that you have and try and see how you can develop them, so you don't get to rely on just one energy source, because if anything happens to that source, then you'll be stranded. And the idea is, for every country to have a robust energy mix. So they call it energy mix, where you try to increase the share of, for instance, renewable, in the energy mix,
Yeah.
to act as a complement and also a credible alternative. For instance, there are some parts of the country that it will make sense for you to be extending the grid to, because they are far from the grid. And like I said, the distribution companies are now owned by private individuals, and these private individuals would want to take every cost into consideration before
Absolutely.
they make any investment. So in such cases, it makes sense for you to deploy renewable energy because it's easy to set up. You just go to the community, you set up your panels, you do your little distribution lines, you meter the houses, and then you have your backup generator just in case the sun does not come out to charge the batteries. and you have your inverter and you're producing power
Now
and
I have a
supplying.
concern, and I'm not asking you to speak for any side at all. But then when we have these options, and they are right there, close to us, and we have, for example, a minister for power,
Mhm.
how much effort have they put in this? Are they aware that these options
No,
are
these are
very
options. Yeah,
exactly
these
so
options have been
there? So
they've been
if
there and they've been
and if
deployed. They've been harnessed. They are being harnessed. It's a continuous process. But
we used to talk about, because when you talk about the issue of light, when I will look at access to light in rural areas, but even before we go to the rural areas,
Mhm,
in Abuja, for
mhm,
example, even the city centers, there is no light, no power in places that you don't expect that there won't be.
yeah.
You know,
No, but if you say there's no power, that means you're just it's one blanket statement
well,
that goes to say that there's no power at all. I mean, there's power, but it's just epileptic.
unstable.
Yes, it's
Yes,
epileptic.
yes.
Yeah, so that's why even within the cities, you see people having panels on their roofs and
Mm,
they have inverters and backup generators and batteries and all of that,
mm,
just to complement the grid. And
yes.
that's the idea. And now it's moving away from just households, even hospitals. You
Yeah.
see, if you go to shopping malls now, you see even this shop right was this Jabi Lake Mall.
Yeah.
They have renewable power there, powering part of the building. In Lagos, a lot of malls are
Mm,
now and estates.
using that.
Even in Abuja, some estates are now moving towards renewable. So before now, maybe people did not really understand the technology, or they don't trust it, or they feel like there are a lot of substandard products within the market. But I remember while I was with the RE, from 2017 to 2023, I only left there in February. And we've been able to standardize some of these things and
Mhm.
also do a lot of projects that proves to people that, these products are here to stay and they are genuine and we have, the good ones.
Mm.
So these are some of the achievements that we were able to achieve while I was there. But I don't think for the last at least 7 years
Yeah.
that have known the sector, and we've been actively deploying,
Mm.
renewables. There's no minister that has come that has not appreciated, that there's an alternative, or there is no head of agency that is in charge of
Mm.
this sort of, assignment that has come, or even president. I remember President Muhammad Buhari gave all the support for renewable energy,
Renewable energy.
to
Yeah.
be deployed. You might say that the deployment is slow, but
Yeah.
is also subject to availability of resources. But then you are in the city. If you go to some extremely rural communities and you
Yes.
see what we've done there already,
Okay.
what we succeeded in doing, and that they are enjoying power, then you would
Which
appreciate.
sizes of Nigeria?
All over. There's
Okay.
no state that we did it while I was in Ari that we didn't have
Mm.
projects.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, there was one that we went to in Ogun State. I can't remember the name of the community now, but it was in a forest.
Okay.
There was a forest reserve
Mm.
that has been there since the time of Awolowo, and this community. So what they do is they go into this wood logging business. So all you see is just all these trucks and lorries carrying log of woods and all of that out, and the road is terrible. So we had to drive in from the express down to that community. We drove another maybe 2 hours in a very within the forest.
Mm.
That community was like the last community in that
Wow.
forest, and
Wow.
for 100 years that they've been there, people have been or more that people have been existing. They've
Mm.
never seen electricity,
Interesting.
and then we had to provide that. So we have a lot of cases like that. Even in my place, there's a place called Opake in Ajakuta, local government in Kogi State. We're the ones that provided electricity for them for the very first time in their lives. They had
Wow.
never seen. So these are just examples of some that I can remember, but we have tens and hundreds of these
And
cases,
so
all over.
let's look at if consideration will be given now that we have all these options. Consideration of foreign investors. What's their response so far with your experience? Like, what is the response from foreign investors when it comes
Foreign
to
investors, all they need is for you to create the enabling environment for them and create a level playing field for them
Mm.
to come and compete. And they come in and they see that you're serious. And that was what we achieved while I was with the REA. All we needed to do was to, for instance, put a regulation in place. Before we came, they didn't have that regulation, so we're able to put the mini grid regulation. So mini grid regulation basically regulates, power generation below 1 megawatt,
Yes.
because that state was that capacity was unregulated
Yes.
before then. So setting the regulations, policies, and guidelines on how, if you want to invest in capacities for power generation below 1 megawatt, what you need to do and all of that. That sent a very good signal. Then we came in and we are signatory. Nigeria is signatory to all of the renewable energy, climate change, action, that within the world. We are very active. We are in the forefront of promoting renewable energy and climate change, to be honest. And we've had very good people from government side, from the private side, representing us very well all over the world. In fact, in the UN now, we have my former MD. She's now the CEO of the UN Sustainable Energy Forum, Damilolo Gombe. So she's doing very well there. We also have, Haji Amina, the former minister. She's the deputy, Secretary General of the UN. So because we have these people there, it makes Nigeria to be on its toes in terms of what we need to do and some of the commitments that we have made to ensure that we meet, for instance, our net zero emission targets for 2060. So we are lucky because we do not have to, reinvent the wheel. We already have a lot of space to, play with in terms of renewable energy. And we had already put measures in place as far back as a decade or more ago. So we're just implementing. So implementation is ongoing. It might be slow. The issue of scaling up is what we're doing. But this private sector know that, in fact, anywhere you go all over the world that they are discussing renewable energy, they always use Nigeria as an example. Yes, because that regulation that we put in place, a lot of African countries have now come to look at it and they are trying to, adopt it. So that has made investors very comfortable, and they started moving in from Kenya, Ethiopia, all of these East African countries that were very that were renowned for renewable energy. They moved in as far back as 5 years ago. They moved into Nigeria. They've set up their own offices, warehouses, and they are doing business, and they are happy.
Okay, so now let's look at how this can be an opportunity for young people out there. Um, the issue of no jobs, we keep saying there's no job. But is there any opportunity in this sector for young people that
This
we should
opportunity you're
explore?
talking of, the ship has already sailed because a lot of young people
Yes,
have already cashed in,
yes,
and is it just natural because we're talking of renewable energy. It's a recent phenomenon. It's a topical issue. It's the technology is relatively new, so you would naturally expect that young people will be the ones driving it, and that's the case. Young people are the ones driving that sector. Especially, we have a lot of young people now that are now small power developers.
Yeah.
Yes, within the space. And as a young person myself, I made sure that while I was at the Rural Education Agency, I made sure that I drew the attention of government to young people, and try to basically push for more young people to take advantage. In fact, we had to even develop a program specifically for young people
Oh,
while I was there, yeah, for them to take advantage of, because we realized that if you wanted to go by the conventional government procurement laws, they usually ask for how many years experience, all of those things. So we designed a program and I got approval from the board and our minister then, to do, what did we even call it then? We called it innovation, something on innovation, innovation hub. So, and it was just so basically young people come with your innovation, look at what you could do, and they took advantage of it. And when we first started, it was the young people that believed in the process because they could see that from this other side, the government side,
yes.
we were young and we
Yeah.
were telling them, "Hi guys, this is what we're planning to do. Come and take advantage." And young people, they like to take risk, so they were the first movers in terms of what we did, because what we did was partnering with private sector where government would bring in some grants, and they would also try and gather some money from either their own private purse or from their banks, and then they would go and deploy this project. So the first sets of people and developers that we had were young people, so they were lucky and they took advantage of that.
Yes.
Besides that, any contract or projects that we are doing, we want to see the numbers. We want to know how many young people are you going to employ to help you do this.
Okay.
Yes. And then how many people will benefit in terms of the ripple effect from it within the society that you're going to deploy this. So we have a lot of statistics, and we have a lot of metrics that needs to be checked before you are even qualified for any of those, either grants or projects or contracts. So yeah, opportunities are there for young people. Yeah.
Let's look at the strategies that have maybe been used or been explored to improve the quality of what we have so far. Like, what's the strategy now?
What do you mean? What we have? What are we?
When we talk about the unstable lights somehow,
Yeah.
yes, the instability. I don't know of now, but I know that for the neighboring countries around us, I feel like they don't have electric power supply like we do.
Why do you feel that way? We are even
Based on
supplying.
experience,
Which one? Which African country?
Okay,
Even
so I
South
don't
Africa,
know.
even South Africa that used to be ahead of the curve,
Well,
they've been having blackouts for a long time now.
so I don't want us to even
I'm not saying,
compare it
yes,
to
exactly.
the fact that yes, every
Yeah,
nation has their own problem.
Yes.
But I'm looking at it from the nations that possibly are benefiting from Nigeria.
Exactly. So Niger, I think we're supplying to Benin.
Yes.
We're supplying to Benin and one other country.
Yes.
We're supplying to two countries.
Yes, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Is it Cameroon?
It's not Cameroon.
Okay.
I think it's Benin and Niger.
Aha.
Those two countries.
So you notice that they don't really have, from my experience though, when the power goes off, you could actually like just hold your clock and it's restored. And if they are
I don't like to make excuses, but Nigeria is a big country. These countries you talk about, maybe they're 10 million, 5 million, just like one state in Nigeria.
Yeah.
That's not an excuse. But all I'm saying is, if you look at our demography, you're moving from, the riverine area in the south, you're moving to the desert in the northeast, northwest. You look at the expanse of land, how do you want to transmit power? It's very difficult. We're not saying we cannot,
Yes.
we are not equal to the task. But I'm saying, given the time that, privatization started, which is just, how many years ago now? 10 years ago? That's 2013.
2013.
Till now, a lot of progress has been made. And if you look at our history, all of the measures that have been taken, from when it was a monopoly to when it was unbundled, it was PHCN, it's now moved to. You see that there's been efforts, but at every stage, you notice that there are new challenges cropping up. So privatization was touted as, oh, this is it. This is all we need to do. When we now did privatization, we started seeing new problems. Now, it's not every government that wants to take that very difficult decision that would affect, the people. Of, say, for instance, the major problem we have now is the tariff. How do we allow the tariff to be cost reflective? How can Kwame remove his hands and say, for instance, now that dollar has been floated, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a multi-year tariff order under the regulation for the power sector that says that if there's a change in, say, inflation, change in the exchange rate, all of these input, products for you to generate your power, then there should be requisite adjustments in your multi-year tariff, order that would go into the price, and it's a pass-through. It's passed through to the consumer. It's the consumer that bears it. So now that this officially dollar moved from 4 something to almost over 700 now, you shouldn't be paying the same price for power because these products are priced internationally. Gas is priced internationally. So if you're generating power from gas, then it should go into your books. It should reflect. So, but government has continued to pay for this difference over time.
Now we have, sorry to cut you, where not in the books, where you have government officials are owners of companies that bring in generators.
I don't know about that.
Yes, that's why I said not in the books.
Okay.
So when you have, even if it's not in the books, if you have a federal government who allows for importation of generators, how does that make this easy? How does that make changing or revolutionizing the electricity sector? how does it change if we are accepting this option as an option?
So are you saying government should stop the importation of or
Well,
ban the
what
importation
what
of?
I'm saying is, would it be better to stop bringing things like generators and then focus on making electricity better?
I don't think. I don't. You see, this is a Nigeria is an open economy.
Because
It's
if
an
you go
open
to
market.
every boss's import,
Even
every
America,
boss's
even
construction,
America, they have generators now.
yes, but then
But a generator is
um,
supposed to be an emergency, power. So you can't stop people from having emergency power. See, forget about that's a very simple way of looking at it,
okay,
right? Nigeria is a big economy. Generator would have its own use somewhere. Most of these buildings you see in America, they have generators. Whenever there is, maybe earthquake or any disaster, the generators come up. That's what generators are meant for. But you can put these people out of business by strengthening, the grid. So it's a competition that is not. Government is supposed to just create the enabling environment and allow,
for both.
yes, allow the private sector guys that are within the power sector to do what they are supposed to do, create the enabling environment for them to strengthen the grid, supply power, let people be so comfortable and confident in their supply that they don't need generator anymore.
Okay.
Then allow the renewable energy people too to come in, put all of the enabling environment for them to come in, bring their panels, bring their batteries, and let them compete with even those within the grid so that people will say, I don't even want grid power again. I want to generate my power myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if the generator guys are still there, they can be there as last resort, backup, right? If there's an emergency that maybe the grid is out and then the sun did not come out as much, maybe in the night you can on your generator just to charge your batteries. I see no reason why we cannot have this mix
Okay.
within the space. I see no reason why we should.
Okay. I like the fact that, it used to be just the electricity itself and the generators, but now we have other options,
Yes.
which is a very good
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
You've made
exactly.
that. So
And that's the idea really, to allow, people, spoil them of, choice. Let them have various choices to, to choose from, and then create the enabling environment. That's the role of government. Just, I keep saying, create enabling environment, because that's what government should do for all of them to thrive.
yeah.
And let them try to be successful and let them compete. So as you're competing, you see that we will be the beneficiaries. We, the consumers, will be the beneficiaries, because you see that price will start coming down
Because
at
of
some point.
competition and
Yes.
all of that. So let me talk to you as a person. Let me talk to Dr. Sanusi as a
Yes.
person.
Who have you been talking to?
I've been talking to you, and I hear a lot of the REA.
Yes.
Now let me talk to you as a person, as an individual.
Yeah.
I don't want to believe that you were in that sector just for work. I believe there's some passion somewhere.
Of course.
So if what would you see in the power sector in Nigeria, and you would tell yourself we've gotten it right, because of course from what you said there've been a lot of progress, but what do you have to see from now on? Like, what's the progress for you?
When we reach maybe 95% access, rate in terms of provision of electricity, and or even 100% access, that's when I know that we are done. Until then, we'll continue to do the work. Either for those in government or for those outside government, Nigerians generally, you have a role to play. I have a role to play. Everybody has a role to play. But for me, the ultimate goal is energy for all. Everybody deserves to have access to electricity.
That's right.
I mean, we're complaining that, it's epileptic. There are some people that they've never even seen electricity in their lives in this same country. So that's why while I was there, like you said, I was very passionate, about power sector. In fact, that's why I went to school to study rural electrification.
Oh, wow.
Because I wanted solutions to these problems. But I also feel like we came in, at least we have now created an option, and that was also very, very missing in the past. We've created an option. We've created a model that can help to fuel and push and expand and scale up that option, which is renewable. And we've also done our part, and then we're still doing it within government, but then outside government we're still doing what we need to do. So until I see that there is 100% access anywhere you go to, you see power. Either you see renewable energy serving communities, or you see the grid there, or you see self-generation.
Yeah.
But let everybody have access to power. Until I see that, to be honest, I don't think I would be I would be happy or I would smile and say, oh, it's
You're
Uhuru.
crossing there.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not Uhuru yet.
Yeah. Okay, so let's for me, because when we talk about the sustainable future
Yes.
of electricity, what would you recommend as a strategy to have a sustainable future for the power sector?
Sustainability comes from different angles
Yeah.
in terms of, for instance, the technology,
Yes.
the commercial side, the business side. You have to look at it. What makes a business sustainable? So if you look at what we have done within the off-grid space, I like to make reference to off-grid space because that's where I'm more passionate about. I feel like within the grid, it's just a small human problem that we need, and when we fix the tariff and we get everybody in line, to fall in line, we'll get it resolved. But off-grid has a lot of work to still, to go into. Because we still need to spend a lot of money to provide electricity to these people. So what we're able to do, which for me is sustainability, is one, we're able to bring in private sector to look at. Before then, rural people, nobody wanted to go. The private guys will tell you there's no money, rural people cannot pay. But then we have done the studies. We've seen that Nigerians are very enterprising people. Even in the rural communities, you see that the rural woman has a small generator.
Yeah.
She's using this, I better pass my neighbor.
Yeah.
She uses, to grind, to do some businesses, SMEs. So we were now looking to replace this sort of generators. And you see, they had all these grinding equipments that were not very efficient, right? So it now became of a business. I mean, a question of how do we replace all of this with renewable,
Yep.
and that was what we did. So we're able to prove to private sector that number one, we have done the regulations that would cover you and protect you in case of anything. We brought policies to encourage renewable energy. Then we brought in some money, some funding as way of grants, for instance, to encourage you to see that the government is putting its money where its mouth is, right? So the private sector guys started coming in. Now the model is sustainable. Of course, the technology is sustainable because we've put measures in place to show that, okay, it works. We don't want, substandard products within the space and all of that. We've succeeded in doing that. Now it's for us to scale up. And once we scale up, the rural people, they have their own mini grids being supplied. It's powering their hospitals, powering their schools, powering their houses, powering their businesses. And they are doing their businesses and they're paying for power, right?
Yeah.
And the private guy is getting this money, and if there's any problem, he fixes, that's a very sustainable long-term model. These panels will be there for 20 years. If the business is good and you have lithium-ion batteries, for instance, after 7-8 years before you change them. Or if it's the other one, the lead acid and all of that, maybe 3-4 years. But if the business is good and things are moving, right, it's a very, very sustainable model. So within the off-grid space, we have demonstrated sustainability in terms of the technology. We've also demonstrated technology in terms of the partnerships, the kind of partnership that should be had. We've also demonstrated sustainability in terms of the type of regulation that government should put in place, and sustainability in terms of productive use of the power within the societies and communities. So for me, this is sustainability, right? And then even for some of the other programs that we've done, in terms of healthcare, because there are standalone programs that just power healthcare, that power schools, universities. These were some things that we did while I was in REA, just to show that, okay, we're not just relying on the grid, but if there is no electricity coming from the grid, we have the ones coming from, the standalone power, solar project that we've done. And they've been there for a couple of years now, and they are going to remain there because of the model we've put in place to operate and maintain these assets.
Well, we are hoping that there will be some kind of continuity on that. What you have started, you've started well. You've done amazing things in especially rural areas, which is one of my personal concerns. And so we would like to really commend you for doing a great job.
Thank you.
And we hope that you always have a voice somewhere, to just check and make sure they don't water down what you have suffered to build.
As if this cold does not hold me down, because I have this cold now. I'm just speaking. I don't know if my voice is even coming out right.
It is.
But yes, we hope to continue to serve our
Yeah.
our country, the community, from wherever we find ourselves.
Thank you so much. We've been
Thank you.
talking with Dr. Sanusi Mohammed Ohiare, the former ED Rural Electrification Fund. And I would like to end this way that we are hoping that the private sector, the government will come together to build a better power sector in Nigeria. And please, to every Nigerian, pay your bills. And so that is how we wrap up today on the Patriot podcast until we come your way again with another edition of the program. My name is Dell.